B-A-T. It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. Today we're going to be talking a little ministering to youth wrap up with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ben Hayes. We'll get right to that interview after these messages. This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by the 3rd annual Bella's Snowball 5K and 1 Mile Fun Run on Saturday, November 12th at 8 a.m. during the Host of Christmas Past weekend in Fayetteville, Tennessee. November is National Adoption Awareness Month, and proceeds from this race will help Luke and Heidi Eakes with their adoption travel expenses and support the mission of Always Endure. This event is fun for the whole family. Meeting Queen Elsa, face painting, Bubble Zone, and candy are just a few things to look forward to. We want to see everyone dressed up. Ruffled shirt, tutu, tights, something with a little Christmas flair. What will you wear to the ball? To register, go to alwaysendure.com and click the Events tab. Thank you for helping to remove a financial barrier so a child can gain their forever home. I'm Travis Creasy. That's All-Pro Counselor Ben Hayes.
How's it going?
I guess the question is to ask you how you're doing, man. A big weekend up in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Ministering to Youth Conference. Ben, what year is this that you guys have been rocking? I've been in different places, but this is, so many years.
So if we had gone straight through, this would have been the 9th year, but because of COVID, it is actually the 8th year. So we started in Orlando, and then the next year we went to Chattanooga, and we then moved to Pigeon Forge, and we have been there every year after those first two. So for 6 years, we were in Pigeon Forge, 5, I guess. And then this year was year 8, and we were in Knoxville. We had been at a place in Pigeon Forge, and they had been really good to us through the years, and they changed hands and kind of lost our spot. And so we went to the Carnes Church of Christ, where the Southeast School of Biblical Studies is located as well, and they let us use their facilities there. It was really great facilities. I had to drive a little ways from our hotel because it's in kind of a little bit more of a suburb or something, I guess, of Knoxville. But it's a beautiful little campus and church there, and so we had a great time.
Awesome. Well, it sounded like you did. I checked in every once in a while over the weekend, and y'all were always hopping. Of course, there's a Facebook page. I'm sure we'll cover all that in detail. But I'll bring to you, and y'all did a great job in naming the conference, Ministering to Youth, or known for short as M2Y. And so I think that, if you fall into those categories of ministering to youth in any way, I would venture to say, even if you're just a parent or someone who's involved in ministering to youth, and we know that there are a lot of guys out there that don't necessarily have the minister title, but they may be a deacon of youth or the elder over youth or in any way impacting youth. So you did a good job naming it, so everybody can be like, "Oh, okay, I'm in on that. I can do that." But our Patreon.com/Ben and Travis, quite literally, you guys are keeping this show on the air through supporting the Patreon. We got 13 or so. It's $5 a month. You get some outlines, Ben and I's outlines, some Will outlines. You get all of the podcasts that we have. This one you get ad-free, and then you get all kinds of discounts, early access to bonus content, and we even send you some free merch from time to time as a thank you for supporting the podcast. So big shout out to all of you that support us on Patreon. We'd love for you to join in with those folks. We think that, we're at right now, I think we're at a pace we put out at least one thing every day of the work week and even a little bit more of that. But nonetheless, the question of the day, Ben, is, what are some of the things that went on this week? What were some of the topics that you guys covered? And, what ways you think people went away edified, or at least speak for yourself. How were you encouraged?
Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and about your question regarding, or your statement regarding the name. And that was the big thing we wanted to do was get everybody involved that ministers to youth. Now, I mean, understandably so, you get a lot of people who are youth ministers who come. And so we have a pretty good crowd of youth ministers. Some of those are full-time youth ministers. Some of those are volunteer youth ministers. Like you mentioned, some are youth deacons. We had several elders there this year from different places, some who are parents. We had a kids ministry director that was there this year. And so we would really love to have anybody that works along with youth in the church in any capacity. But the focus is that we want to help them minister to youth more. So everything that we do revolves around and is centered on the work of the church as it concerns the kids. So if elders come, hopefully what they go away with are things that help them minister to youth or to the youth minister and help, the parents and the youth minister relationship, or the parents and the kids relationship, or learning, mental health things that can help. So to come back to your question then, this time we had Kirk Brothers was our keynote speaker. He did 6 lessons and hit absolute bombs of a home run on every one of them. It was just amazing. I mean, his ability to break down the scripture and give some talking points. He always has a bullseye that he's kind of shooting for. He tells you that at the beginning, and then at the end he comes back to that and shows you how he nailed it, and he did every single time. But you've got the keynotes, and then we have kind of tracks, different tracks that we try to follow along with. We had kind of a digital learning class, which was, we had Chad Landman came in and talked about, sort of the digital age and ministering in that. That was a good class for both youth ministers and for parents and elders and anybody really to hear that deal with youth, helping keep them safe. Aaron Dodson, one of our board members, also had some stuff on technology. Then we have a track that's really, it's not really even necessarily pertaining to youth, but it's kind of like a diving deeper track. And, one of the things that I don't know if most youth ministers will understand this, you don't get the chance to sit and listen to other people very often. You're teaching Bible class Wednesdays and Sundays, and so you don't get to sit in your own Bible class a lot of times. That may not be the healthiest thing, but it's just the reality. And so what we've found through the years, we haven't always had that track, but Justin Rogers did that track this year and did the names of God, and it was a very popular class, just because they just kind of got to get that deep stuff. We had a self-care class, a couple of classes on that. We had a couple of mental health classes. I taught a couple of those. We have a ladies track for any of the women who come to the conference, and kind of helping them. Some of that is I guess, self-care-ish type stuff with them, but also, topics that help them in ministry. We had some classes on finances and dealing with that. So there's we try to cover a pretty broad scope, and there's usually 3 class options every class period. So you can go to different ones. Anybody who comes gets a link. In a few weeks, we'll be sending a link out for all the classes. So they're all recorded, and you get the access to those. So if you miss some while you're at conference, you can come back. We'll probably have a way where, somebody can pay a small fee if they didn't come to conference, and be able to access those too. So we want to get that information out there, and we want more people to come.
So I think it's neat, and this got brought up when we talk to the Transform conference ladies. It's good to get people that you have something in common with. And so even if it was, hey, we're going to get together and just kind of share some of the obstacles that we face, or, having people that have similar issues that they're facing, is just a big deal. And we talk a lot about self-care and taking a break. And I guess it's kind of a way to kind of get away, but also you're being involved, you're being enriched, you're being edified to keep going. And that's something we all need. And man, I'm all about what you're talking about, that I don't get a lot of chances to sit and listen to somebody else, that I'm always kind of on and teaching myself. So, man, that's a big deal. And that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I love, and we talked about that. In fact, I think not Aaron, Justin Morton and Jared Bailey and myself got to be on Kirk Brothers' podcast this weekend. And so we were talking about, and all three of us, he said, I just want you to talk about what have you learned in ministry? And all three of us said connect, basically to some extent connect, or, the personal connections that you have in the church make the difference. And it brought us all back to the thought of that's what M2Y is really about, is we want people to come in and we want you to listen to the lessons, but I know from going to, the free lectures and other stuff that you get there and you go to a couple of lectures, but you may skip a couple of lectures to go, eat with some guys that you hadn't got to hang out with. And most of our attendees don't skip the lessons, and that's good. We don't have it's not an all week thing. It's, Thursday evening, late, Friday, all day, Saturday, all day. And when I say all day, we end about, 4 or 5 o'clock and you get the rest of the evening. But I think that's one of the big draws. This year was a little different because we weren't in a conference center / hotel. So you couldn't just ride up and down the elevator and be at your room, but we still had every night, we all went out to eat together. If we didn't, we'd go sit in the lobby of the hotel together. Or, during the lunch there at the church, we sit around and talk. And then we have idea labs at lunchtime, right after lunchtime, where we just offer some questions and everybody kind of talks about them. And we have 30-minute breaks between most of the classes so people can just sit around and talk to each other in between classes. So doesn't feel so rushed. So there's a lot of things like that we try to build in the opportunity for, rubbing elbows and talking to each other and, sharing struggles and difficulties and victories and all that good stuff.
Well, it sounds a lot like, it's running theme throughout the Bible, the connect, the vine, I'm the branch, you're the branches, I'm the vine, all the connection. I don't know if I got that right, but you go to Psalm 1, it's those who meditate, those who spend time with people of like mind, or like that tree that's planted by the water, that strengthens. And so that's kind of the imagery I got there, while even you were literally going and eating and drinking and spending that time together, you were connecting and being strengthened. And as we well know, you need all that you can get. And we certainly try to provide that through the podcast, through benandtravis.com, all kinds of free stuff there. And I don't know, we haven't really mentioned it, but you and I and Will have been kind of working on some mental health stuff that we want to take out to different congregations and different things. And so I guess I bring that up so that our listeners can be in prayer about that we can put together a good bit of material, either that people can get on their own videos and stuff, or they can have us come out and do them. And that's just something else we're hoping to offer here soon. So certainly take the prayers from people. But man, it just sounds like this weekend is one of those things where, you may have that area where you feel pretty comfortable in, but we're always looking to be better at the things that we're not great at. And so I guess my question would be, what have you left maybe feeling like, hey, I got a little better at that this week, or I've been equipped as a jumping off place to be a little bit better, or maybe somebody else commented to something along those lines?
Well, for me, it's just always like a shot in the arm. So I feel like, I get back home and I feel like, all right, I'm ready to take off running again with ministry, and not running away, but running into the fray, I guess. And, doing more. Like I said, Kirk Brothers lessons all were fantastic. And the whole theme, was the idea of the upside. What's the upside? And he really talked about. He ended every lesson with "look up," and living the idea of living in view of eternity was his whole theme. And so everything revolved around that, and that Christ came the first time he came to kind of reveal himself and show himself. And I think it was the first time he came in grace, he says, and talks about Titus 2. He came in grace. The next time he'll come in glory, and because those are the two comings of Christ, or revealings of Christ. And he came with grace and he comes with glory. And now we live in view of that, with the idea of that we're, gazing up, waiting for him, and that we're living in godliness. So a lot of G words to kind of remember, but I remembered them. That was pretty good. So, just that idea of keep your focus in the right place. And, I think we all struggle with that from time to time. I know I do.
Absolutely.
Especially a weekend where I had to spend in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it was an up and down weekend for those in Knoxville, just like it was for us in Alabama.
Yeah. And our fun question will play into that a little bit. But before we get to that, so I'm assuming that the plans are being made for next year. Do y'all have a date, have a location, and of course share the website with us so we can bookmark that on our interwebs machine, so that we won't miss it.
Yeah, we have set a date. It's the same weekend as it was, and as it has been for the last few years. It'll be November the 2nd through the 5th, and it's going to be at Heritage Christian University. One of our good friends of the podcast, Kirk Brothers, is the president there. He's been so good to us, coming and being a part of this. They bring a booth every year and that sort of thing, but they have graciously offered to let us come to their campus. So we'll be having the classes and stuff on their campus. We'll have a place to stay. There possibly could be some folks who could stay on campus, but then we'll have some locations where we're still got to get all that ironed out. But it'll be November the 2nd through the 5th in Florence, Alabama, at Heritage Christian University, and I think it'll be spectacular. It's going to be awesome. There's a lot of good, fun things to do around Florence, especially when it comes to really the only things we're worried about is eating. There's places to eat, and that's a good thing.
Plenty of those.
So got plenty of places to eat. There's some really cool stuff to do around HCU. They have a Frisbee golf course that's on their campus now, and so there's all kinds of stuff that we could probably get into at the campus. But that's where we'll be next year this time.
Yeah, you know that you've done a good job speaking when they're like, you know what, we should just move this to your place.
To you.
I've never had that happen. No one has ever been like, man, you guys, you did such a good job. We're just going to move this to your place of work, employment. So, hey, Kurt, great job.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of podcasts that are associated with Heritage. I know
they do.
Kurt has one. And I think Dr. Gallagher has one. So be sure to check those out. I'm sure they are phenomenal. I will find those links and I will put them down in the description for sure for easy access. But those guys are tremendous at everything they do. And of course, that's because they put the master, Jesus himself, first in all things. So.
Oh, and m2yconference.com is the website, m2yconference.com. And then you can go to Facebook. We have a Facebook page. It's just M2Y. When we say M2Y, it's the letter M, the number 2, and the letter Y, M2Y Conference. So you can find that on Facebook as well. And we'll be updating. There's pictures from this last week on there. So go check it out. Look and see if you recognize anybody.
Excellent. Well, as per tradition on this here podcast, and that ain't changing anytime soon, we like to ask a fun question. And as you mentioned, you've been in Knoxville all weekend, and it has been a doozy for probably most of our listeners. Shout out to Scott Kaiser. You're feeling pretty good this week.
Gotta be.
If Alabama's got to take the L, and I know I'm in the minority here, LSU's not a bad one. Like I always think of Scott and his good friendship, and so I always reach out and congratulate him when things don't go our way. But nonetheless, you were up there, and of course, the Tennessee game was not in Knoxville. Probably good for you. It was in Athens. So I guess my fun question for me to ask is, how much blame or credit are you taking for the Georgia Bulldog win on Saturday?
Well, you know me, and I don't post anything, and I try not to say anything. We had some healthy discussions over the weekend between me and, of course, everybody on the board, everybody except for Greg Tidwell, who is a Buckeyes fan. Okay, so that brings along with it enough other stuff. And Rhonda Fernandez, who is really an Auburn fan, but she claims Alabama because her dad, Mr. Jack Zorn, was a big Alabama fan. Had conversations, I believe, with Bear Bryant on occasion and things like that. So he was a big Alabama fan, but she's an Auburn fan. So there was the Buckeye, the Auburn, me.
Sounds like a bad joke.
As Alabama, and then like 6 Tennessee. I'm trying to think 5 or 6 Tennessee fans. So there was a whole lot of Rocky Top being played all the time, and I just tried to be nice and hold my tongue as much as I could.
I'm going to say this: you're a better man than me, and I know there are a lot of Alabama fans that the Tennessee thing ain't a rivalry; they just hadn't beat us and whatever. And you know me, I've never been on that train. Like Tennessee
is a rival.
Even before they beat us, they can't lose enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm like you. I didn't post anything because I don't have the right to post anything because they beat us. But I was just wondering if you took any credit or blame or just happy to have made it back to Muscle Shoals safely.
I'm glad I got out safely. I was wearing red yesterday. I didn't wear Alabama. I just wore red because I didn't want to get, constantly prodded. But everybody else had orange on. There was a lot of orange all over the place. A lot of painted windows in town. I mean, it's a happening place. And hey, Tennessee's still got a shot at some good stuff this year.
They're definitely in the thick of it. It is interesting that I received more attacks in direct messages yesterday than I did when Tennessee actually beat us. So I'm not really understanding how that works. I guess when you get beat, you go kick the old dog. It's like, well, I can't go mess with the big dog because he might bite my leg out. But that dog we beat, I can go kick him, and I got the win over him. But hey, it's all in good fun. I don't hate anybody. That's why we call it the good old dislike podcast. Hate is a strong term.
It's all about. That's what sports is about. Yeah. People win, people lose. You get to have some good fun, and I will say about the guys and girls on the board, it was all good fun. Nobody, was mad about it going away at the end of the day. And I didn't say anything after last night, except this morning I just said, well, we both had a tough night.
It was rough for most people in these parts. It's not many days you can say Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama all lost on the same day, but I think it might have been due. I think it was due. I think most people can agree it was due for us anyways. We needed a little humility, and we certainly got it. But anyways, we hope that you've enjoyed a little rehash of M2Y, and man, you've taken all away my excuses not to be there next year. I mean, it's in the hometown, all that good stuff. So we encourage all of you to make plans to be at M2Y next year. Hopefully you're all impacting today's youth for the kingdom. One way that you can do that, we really believe in the message of this podcast, is if you would, whatever platform you use, if there's an ability to rate, share, and review, we would appreciate a 5-star review, or highest as you can go. I don't know how it all works on all of this stuff, but man, it certainly helps when you share and get the news out there, especially on this episode about M2Y. Ben, I appreciate you taking some time. I know you're tired and ready to get some rest, but I appreciate you. I love you, and I love what M2Y is doing.
Love you too. Appreciate the support on it, and would love to see everybody that's listening to this podcast there next year.
Oh, yeah, and St. Jude run is coming up. We're getting close to that deadline, so find that link. I'll put it in there. Donate, hit it up, and we'll go run here in a few weeks.
Let's do it.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.